Mhm.
We are live.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello, everyone.
everyone.
Welcome. I think we'll give people one more minute to join before we start.
Very well.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just letting people join, a few more people join in, and we will start in about 30 seconds.
Mhm.
Okay, I think we can get started. We have a lot to get through.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very pleased to welcome you all here for this special occasion on brewing new traditions. My name is Ranjana, and I'm the content manager at Gourmet Pro. Gourmet Pro is a global collective of leading food and drink professionals who can support your end-to-end growth initiatives. Our collective comprises 150 local experts across more than 30 countries, and today you'll meet two of them. We've supported some of the leading companies and organizations across the world. Many of you may also be familiar with Market Shake by Gourmet Pro, which is a leading innovation and F&B trends newsletter with a readership of over 4,000. We cover market trends, consumer intelligence, competitive landscape, and insider knowledge shared by experts from the food and drink industry. And before we move on to today's topic, I'd just like to announce that we have another fabulous webinar coming up on May 2nd, where another one of our experts will be speaking about the hottest food trends to expect over the next couple of years. You can scan the QR code right here and register for it, or just wait for our email. We'll be sending one soon enough. And now on to today's session. So in this webinar, you'll hear about the coffee market and what's driving it today, some of the most exciting emerging markets, rituals in the context of coffee, and
Und ja,
how
ich
to
habe
develop
entweder an der
products.
Tankstelle die Tankstation, die ich dir gezeigt habe.
And
Wieso? Du kannst es auch, glaube ich, ja ohne Account machen.
I'm so sorry. Could I request
Dann
everyone
musst
to
du zum
mute
Farbladen gehen.
themselves, please? Sorry. So yes, we will be looking at rituals in the context of coffee and how to develop products and experiences for new sets of consumers. At the end of the presentation, we'll take some questions from you. So please feel free to add in your questions in the chat box and we'll try to answer them all. If for any reason we're not able to get to your question, we'll definitely get you an answer after the event. But before we kick things off, let's get to know our experts, Felipe Cabrera and Dr. Rafael O'Connor. Rafael, could you kick things off, please, and tell us a bit about yourself and your experience?
Yes, thank you. My name is Rafael. I am based in Europe and more specifically in Ireland. And it's a real privilege and honor to be with you today to talk to you about this wonderful category, which is coffee. We are going to look at it from a product perspective and ways and means of innovating for this very traditional type of occasion. So my experience is very much on the selection of different ingredients, how those can interact with each other, and also from a commercialization and launch perspective, covering pretty much anything from ideation to launch, including life cycle management type of projects. So a real honor and privilege to be here today and introduce you to the wonderful secrets of coffee.
Thanks, Rafael. Felipe, how about yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks also for being here. It's an honor also for me to be here, especially to be here with Rafael. So I'm from Colombia. I'm based in China, though, many years, and I've been in the coffee industry also since 2015, here mostly in China. And I'm the founder of a consulting company here in China dedicated to the coffee market itself, in a very broad spectrum, let's say, from either the green beans or the raw products to the production, manufacturing also, creation of the new products, including even localization for packaging and so on, and also creation of coffee shop concept or bakeries, brick and mortar, with my business partner here in China. So we are like a broad spectrum of all the coffee industry. So that would be the part that we usually lack is the part of Rafael. So that's why Rafael is here with us also today.
Thank you both. So let's get started. Over to you, Felipe.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Very well, so let's start the global coffee culture phenomenon. So everyone knows, of course, about coffee. Is one of the, we can go to a second slide, actually, next slide, which is the coffee is the second most popular drink globally, right? There's a lot of people drinking coffee, and now we have an estimation that 2.25 billion cups are drink daily, and that's without the Asian population, the huge percentage of Asian population drinking coffee. So it means there is a room for growth, a lot, billions of cups of coffee. Let's go to the next slide, please. So there also the drivers to grow. What are the drivers that are growing the coffee market globally, not only in Asia, but all around the world? So first, that the customers are starting to drink coffee from a younger age. That's we are going to talk also about today, which is Gen Z and Millennials, and actually the coming one also, which are from 12 to 16, 18 years old, that are starting to enter into drinking coffee. Then we have also a growing popularity in coffee, especially in new markets, which we will talk also about it. On emerging markets, coffee is more like a lifestyle and an aspirational products, right? And it's also very trendy and versatile, especially with these social media, tech-enabled coffee brands and so on that really are really trendy at the moment, not only in China, but in a lot of places around the world, which we will talk about it also. Next slide, please. Then we are gonna see a map of the world, and then you're gonna see a circle here on the Asia, right? So the growth actually not only in the all around the world, but Asia, the growth is gonna be huge because nearly 60% of the world's population live there, and a lot of that is young people, right? The median age is 35 years. So it means that there is a lot of young people that are really the new target for the consumption of coffee. Let's go for the next slide, please. So we are, yes. So these are, for example, some of the brands that you can see of this new coffee retail, let's say, around the world. So we can start with China because I'm also based here. So we have Luckin Coffee and Coty Coffee. Coty is a revenge coffee brand created by the ousted director of Luckin Coffee. And then in a similar way, we have also brands like Flash Coffee, started in Singapore. Now they filed from bankruptcy last year, but they are very strong still in Malaysia, Indonesia, and another Southeast Asian countries. We have also in Indonesia, Kopi Kenangan. Also, is a very new, is still a new retail coffee brand. Then we have Blue Tokai, which is the example per excellence in India. Great brand. We have in Romania, so we are going to go to Eastern Europe, which is again an emerging market for coffee. There's a brand called Five to Go in Romania. Also very interesting what they are doing, adding also a little bit of food or snacks. Very nice packaging to the young generation. And then also we have, like in more traditional countries, like in the US and in Brazil, for example. So in Brazil, we have the coffee, which for the audience that speaks or can read Japanese, the Sa coffee. So it was created almost like a Japanese coffee brand, but it's actually from Brazil by Brazilians. It's just like a little bit of like this Japanese style that they added into the brand. And they are actually expanding also around Europe and in other countries, not only in Brazil. And Blank Street is in the US also. Also a smaller area coffee shops. And this is the trend that we're seeing everyone around. That it's just mostly like grab and go or just sit there. It's not a third space. That's the difference between the new retail of coffee brands that is just moving this new coffee culture on the emerging markets. And again, also in the traditional as in South America and North America. There's also another brand from India that just opened in Portugal, in Porto, and they are going to have expansion plans. Seems to be Portugal is one of the key markets in Europe for this new trend of coffee to the young generations. So this is an example that not only in emerging markets is happening, but also in more orthodox countries, coffee drinker countries like Europe, right? Western Europe. So Portugal is a very good case study for these new brands, new retail brands that are entering into traditional orthodox coffee drinker countries. Let's go for the next slide, please. Then we have, before we go also to the coffee rituals, maybe I forgot to mention also about the Southeast Asia. We have also a lot of growth in Vietnam, Indonesia, as I mentioned, India, Thailand, Philippines, because there's a lot of young population again, and also because it's very particular that Vietnam, Thailand, and other countries in Southeast Asia, they are growing coffee, they are coffee growers, right? But they usually grow Robusta coffee. And now there is a move because climate change and other things, there is a move on those countries to make Robusta more palatable. So they are trying new processing ways to have a specialty coffee processing from the Arabica into the Robusta, let's say, world of coffee. And that's creating new opportunities for these coffee growers in the Southeast Asia, India, and so on, to really expand their coffee cultures over there, because the people that drink coffee is very bitter. They add a lot of sugars, and that's the old generation. So they are trying also to change all this. So that's why I wanted to mention Southeast Asia on here. And I already mentioned Eastern Europe, and I forgot to mention Middle East and North Africa. So that's a very strong emerging market, especially Middle East. One example of that is Saudi Arabia. The Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia is investing 319 million US dollars to support the growth of the national coffee industry by 2030. So it's very similar to what China started to do it 15 years ago, putting a lot of investment, a lot of power behind the development of the culture. So for the people that didn't know, Saudi Arabia, they do have coffee on the mountain areas, very similar to like Yemen. They have on that kind of particular regions of the mountainous areas. So it's a very small production, but the idea is to grow that. That's why the public investment fund of Saudi Arabia, they are putting a lot of capital on it, right? So as you see also in North Africa, in Morocco also we have a lot of my emerging market there. So as you see, it's all around the world that is happening this. So it's not only for specific regions, it's really all around the world. Now, coffee rituals. I think the coffee rituals, we can pass it to Rafael.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you very much for giving us an overview of the commercial landscape here. And I must say, it is very enlightening for me because here in Europe, we are probably a lot more conservative around coffee. And that's why I wanted to introduce our audience to the opportunities around ritual. And what is a ritual? I think all of us would have a different concept of what that means. So we actually went back through the definition and wanted to share it with you. A ritual is a meaningful, scripted set of behaviors that are performed before, during, and after an event. And there is usually a very specific desired result in mind. It's also a repeated sequence of meaningful behavior that occur in a very fixed way over time with little variation. And I think it's important when we talk about the coffee category, because from a user experience perspective, it covers all the different aspects of the end user interaction with the company, with the brand, with the product and the service. So Felipe has highlighted some of the common aspects around the coffee category, but there are also some very clear differences across each of the different markets, across each of the different occasions of drinking coffee. And the power of rituals is that it can infuse meaning into the user experience. So from that perspective, it's very important to appreciate that rituals can induce a much higher emotional responses than typical type of habits that we have around food. And it actually involves fairly complex processes around emotions, around feelings that goes beyond the product. So sometimes there is even a symbolic meaning, and around coffee, there is a very strong kind of social interaction associated with this category. So in terms of overall experience for the product, it is important to take those into consideration. And to enhance the enjoyment of consumption, it's important to put the product into the overall experience for this specific category. So maybe through the next slide, we can also see how different countries have different rituals around coffee. So from left to right here, we can see that, for example, people who are going to drink an espresso in Italy would highlight the relaxation, slowing down, the connection with other people. Sometimes it even goes beyond that and can be associated with meditation and reflection before the day starts. So when you go to Italy, people are gathering in different parts of the cities to have their espresso. In Ethiopia, then, it's a different ritual around the brewing, around the roasting, and the sharing. And it emphasizes slowing down, a concept of hospitality, community, and fostering relationship. And in Japan, if we talk about ritual, it's art, like often, the way Japanese people do it, and it combines precision with performance, highlighting the science, the precision, the attention to detail, and the visual spectacle around serving or preparing, serving, drinking, consuming coffee. So those are the different areas that we wanted to highlight. And maybe on the next slide as well, what we would like to discuss is the fact that there are two very different kind of approach around coffee. Is one is very much orthodox and focused on rituals and taking the time to prepare the coffee. And on the other side, I think we're starting to get a feel here that, you know, the way people engage with this category has changed. And also in different parts of the world, different concept of the coffee category can bring a completely new perspective to reinvent this category, or to satisfy the needs of a different audience, or maybe to drink coffee at a time where usually people wouldn't necessarily have reached out for a coffee throughout the day or the evening or the night. So the rituals are changing. And what are the drivers for those changes? The one that we would like to highlight with you are focused around technology. It's also around some of those modern twists to traditional products, a lot of variety and innovation opportunities around flavors and ingredients. Some of the brewing techniques as well have been almost reinvented to create new type of products, new type of experiences. And also the functional benefits of coffee have really started to come out. A lot of science has been built around the benefit of coffee and coffee beans, and how some of those can be associated with some very significant health benefit, whether it is cardiovascular health, but also mental health. So those are the type of drivers that can really transform a category that we would have looked at being very traditional, almost outdated, but this is not the case. And I think it's just very important to reiterate some of those nuances and common aspects around the coffee category. And with this in mind, I think what we are going to go through here briefly is to introduce different segments who are engaging with this category. Felipe touched on this earlier, where he spoke about the fact that there are new consumers who are strongly engaging with coffee. And maybe on the next slide, if you don't mind, Ranjina, thank you very much. What we can see here is that usually people would associate the coffee category with the Gen X or our baby boomers. They are the people who are, you know, between 44 to maybe 80 years of age, and who have a very orthodox and traditional way of engaging with the coffee category. But what we have seen in the most recent years is that millennials, who are the one between 28 to 43 years of age, are actively transforming this category. And the one that we may be surprised about are the Gen Z. They are the one who are 12 to 27 years of age and who are also actively engaging with this category. And not even that, we see 10, 11-year-old with our generation Alpha and also engaging with this category. So in terms of commercial opportunity, what we want to highlight here is that between the millennials and the Gen Z, we have 52% of the global population. And they are the ones who are really driving innovation, who are reinventing the coffee category. So it's a very different narrative, it's a very different expectation, but it's very important to realize that this category has been able to adjust to the needs and the lifestyle of a completely new generations. Anything that you would like to add, maybe Felipe, because I'm talking about, I suppose, a segment that I think you are very familiar when you speak about those new concepts that are emerging throughout the world, new brands.
Yes, correct. Thanks for that, Rafael. So one of those, as I was saying, that these kind of new retail brands and the products that are coming after that is all because of this new generation, especially the millennials and Gen Z, that they are adding drinking coffee almost not as a beverage itself, but as a product. And a part of the beverage is not a coffee, but it's a a beverage with coffee, right? That's what they are kind of creating and the changing. And with that, they are adding a lot of non-dairy milks. And when you put non-dairy milks, like plant-based milks, then you can play with more flavors, like, for example, fruity flavors, even citric flavors, that if you are using dairy milk, that would be very difficult to pair together, right? Because it's the citrusy is gonna, the acidity is gonna cut the milk, right? So these kind of new things that we 15 years ago, we really didn't have it. That's what those new lattes, coconut lattes, for example, here in China, is super popular, and then they are expanding to Asia in general, and then you have different colors and so on. It's very Instagrammable, all that, and all that is also because it's Instagrammable. It's all digitally tech-enabled, that you can place the order for products or like buy it in e-commerce and so on. So that's the generation really that is pushing the market, like the growth of the market, not the old generation.
Thank you for that. Our next slide. So again, here, just to capture some of the points that we touched on already and how our Gen Z and our millennials are so important, because they are the most connected generations. Our Gen Z are digital natives. They most never didn't know any time without the internet or without the phone. They are also racially and ethnically very diverse populations that can influence taste and culture. And we need to mention their interest, their focus on sustainability, which again is a new driver that brands need to take into account, because this is something that probably didn't get as much attention in the past, but could be a real game changer as well for those consumers. Our next slide, please. And back to the point that we touched on earlier as well, what are they drinking? Basically, it can be hot and cold, depending on the time of the day. It can be specialty coffee, but it can also be a cold brew. It can be an indulgent type of experience. They want it rich, they want it heavy, but sometimes they also may want to have a boost, and they are looking for something a lot lighter with specific health benefits. And the other aspect to take into account is our Gen Z and our millennials are a lot more focused on convenience and not so much on the preparation that can go around coffee. So those are the key points that we wanted to highlight, and that can also support the fact that there are opportunities to innovate in that space and to pretty much be endless in the different type of combination that can be available. Thank you for that. So I think we are going to go a little bit deeper now with our next section around the products. So certainly what we have already seen is that we have our coffee beans, Robusta or Arabica, and they play a very important role into the preparation of the coffee. Sorry, the next slide, please, Ranjana. Yes, so we have our beans, and there is an awful lot of process and step that needs to go into processing those beans. And then from that, we can add multiple different ingredients, maybe around the milk or the milk alternative, around flavors, around color, around texture with the foam and with the liquid itself. So by area is really around identifying the parameters and the attributes of each of the different products and ensure that those are aligned with the consumer's expectations. And this is an example of the type of work that we do, whereby we can identify key factors that are rated, they are ranked, and we can select the specific type of prototypes that are suitable for a specific type of audience. So we spoke about how our Gen Z would have a completely different expectation from our boomers, for example. So it's very important that people like me identify those criteria, parameters, and develop the type of products. And not only that we can launch suitable products, but that there is a harmony in terms of, you know, if people go to China, for example, and they want a cappuccino, that they can also find a similar type of product if they travel to Europe. So there has to be very harmonized definition and way of mapping the profile of those different products. So this is an example here from a scientific paper. And as you can see here, you know, we can identify whether a product is bitter, whether it is smoky, or is it beany, does it have some woody notes? So just an example of how we can map consumer preferences by doing some work around sensory analysis, which is a full science of itself. You know, sensory science is quite a complex area and certainly very relevant to the coffee category. So maybe the next slide, if you don't mind, Ranjana. Again, another very important aspect around coffee, because we know that different time of the day, we may have different expectations. So what are the parameters that are relevant for each of the usage occasion, and what are the products that are best going to fit the expectations and the requirement for a specific product? So for example, around the preparation, we can see on the left here of the column, the preparation, you know, it differs whether we are looking at coffee in the morning or in the afternoon, or whether it is a social occasion. The smell, you know, sometimes we want it light, sometimes we want it to invade the room. The flavor, are we looking for something very strong, or are we looking for something sweet or lighter? And then the froth. So beyond the coffee per se, the whole froth can also be extremely relevant and significant for some of our consumers. So just to give you a little bit of a perspective of the type of work that we do, we have done some of it with Felipe and Gourmet Pro to identify the parameter that were relevant and make sure that the product that was developed was aligned with the consumer's expectation every time that the consumer would engage with a specific product. Thank you very much for that. Maybe the next slide, if you don't mind. And I think it goes back to the point that we made earlier around the differences between Arabica and Robusta, and, you know, being appreciating, I suppose, some of those differences and how different blends of Arabista and Robusta can give completely different experience. And as you mentioned, Felipe, you know, especially around sustainability, different part of the world being able to grow different type of beans and mix them in such a way that we can have more sustainable products. So here we can see you know, the map, the profile of coffee beans from Arabica or Robusta, and how some of those notes have been very clearly defined. You know, especially around coffee, where we have about 250 different compounds that are interacting with each other. So we need to really be very precise and accurate in how we define those different ingredients. I'd love to get your perspective on this, Felipe, and how that relates to some of the changes that you have seen around coffee growers. Is it something that is currently being used by the growers that you interact with?
Yes, yes. So on the thanks for that too. That's a very good segue. So for the audience that are familiar with the wine industry or the wine world, you know, the wine industry, you have like a diagram of all the flavors, the notes that you can have on a wine, right? In the coffee industry, we kind of copy paste and then adjust it to what is the coffee. So we have like a similar diagram, a circular diagram, and that's when we usually have for particular areas of Arabica, we have some particular notes. For example, for African countries, we have also high acidity, very fruity, floral notes. Then you go back to Colombia, light body also in African countries like Ethiopia, Ethiopian coffees. Then we go to Colombia, Brazil. Colombia is more mild, then the sweet and flower, medium body. Brazil is a slightly stronger body compared to Colombia. But then we go to Southeast Asia, right? Which is Indonesia, is like heavy, full body country, earthy notes, zero acidity, at least in the normal processing. And that's what I want to kind of the next step of the topic that we're going to talk in the next slide, which is sustainability. So before going to that, the climate change is really creating more and more difficulties to have a lot of the Arabica producers some years are having less yield compared to Robusta. So Arabica coffee, they really need a certain altitude, 1,100 or 1,000 meters above the sea with certain climate conditions. It cannot be too hot, right? While Robusta, it could be below 1,000 meters of altitude, and then it can really stand warmer climates. So what is happening going on because of the climate change and all that? There are a lot of coffee producers, like for example Colombia or Vietnam, that they say, okay, how can we produce coffees that are similar in the flavor notes to Arabica without being Arabica, just being Robusta, right? So they are from the specialty coffee world. There are a lot of different processings, which are natural processing, anaerobic processing that adds a carbon maceration. There are some processes that are copied from the wine industry, and they are playing with these very highly technical processes to process Robusta coffees. And those Robusta coffees are having a palate, taste notes that are almost as Arabica, but they are sold on a cheaper price than an Arabica. We have a Robusta, we have an Arabica, and they are selling right in the middle or slightly higher than the middle. So those new things, because it's just new, this happening 1 year ago or something like that, is really empowering coffee farmers and also coffee producers that are really fighting the climate change. For example, Colombia is also doing that. So it's really sustainability, the climate change is really pushing how we're going to have more yields on coffee. Robusta, if Arabica is not enough, then we need to adapt the Robusta, right? Also to the market for the Arabica. So, and specialty coffees are also a key part on the Arabica. And all that is trying to say, how can we do it to keep this? One of the questions that on the chat was, they were asking about that. How can we keep the pace with the growth on the world? And this would be one of those steps, is just creating new ways like that. For example, Japan, I think the south of Japan is also playing with coffee growing. And if this kind of Robusta's new processing is successful, probably countries like the US can copy it in the south regions of California and other mountainous south regions of the country. So many countries that are not coffee producers might be in the future coffee producers. So that's something that is really, we are in the industry all struggling to keep up and pace up the production and the yields to satisfy the growth of the coffee global trend. Let's go to the next slide. Then we are going to talk a little bit more about the new experiences. So we are talking about the products before, we are talking about the generation, what are the target customers, right? The Generation Z and millennials. And then, so what are all these things creating as experience, right? So to explain a little bit to the audience, in the coffee world, we talk about the evolution of the coffee into 5 different waves. It was before 4, now we can address a 5th one. So the first one was the coffee after the Second World War. In the 50s, everyone was drinking instant ground coffee, right, in canisters. Everyone is in the old generation were very familiar with that. Then we have the second wave, which is the branded chains like Starbucks. So they introduce to the world really what is having an espresso, an americano, a latte, because those kind of drinks were not really global. It was mostly to Italy, and then these brands expanded this all around the world. Then we have the third wave, which is the artisan coffee, which what I usually call, like, if you see in your coffee shop a barista very like with tattoos or the hair very nice, very technical, measuring every gram of coffee that he's putting into the coffee filter, and then in a special temperature of the water, and that is almost like a tea ceremony, right? That's the third wave. That's the artisan coffee way. But then on the fourth wave, we enter into, okay, how can that third way develop into a more scientific methods, right? More customization of the roasting, playing with different processing methods or roasting methods, or even brewing methods, right? So it becomes more and more scientific per se, and also even how we can get more influence from other industries. So, for example, milk tea industry, there are a lot of things that on the fourth wave we are gathering, we are getting inspired by that. Also, we are getting that also from from the mixology world. So how can we present coffees almost like a cocktail without having alcohol? It could have, but without having alcohol, like a 10 minutes preparation of a coffee that looks amazing in a glass that is almost like a cocktail-like, right? A mixologist approach on a coffee. And then with the fifth one is, okay, how can we convert all this into business, right? Because now we are with the climate change, sustainability issues, with the geopolitical situation that is more and more complex now. How can really this kind of coffee trends really become into coffee businesses, right? How can small coffee shops, independent specialty coffee shops, how can really survive and thrive? How can, instead of being one small store, can really drive into like a concept, a strong coffee concept, right? So that's what the fifth way is it, right? So we have examples of this here in China. Sorry about being too China focused. I live here. I have taken these photos here. So one of those on the first top slide, you see a cup of coffee called Aloha Coffee. That's a Chinese brand created by a Champuchin barista here. And those straws that you see on the top of that thick sour cream milk foam, you have some straws there that is saffron. So it's a very unique thing that they are creating for the market, a very particular flavor, like cheesy-like foam with some saffron, and below that is a coffee blend that is very unique, light citrusy. So it's quite interesting. Then you have below the normal one, which it could be for a warm season, like I say, holidays, winters, which has some cinnamon and all that, which that's more like a I would say kind of normal presentation, right? And then we have example of what Luckin Coffee is doing in China, which is a fully automatic coffee machines. Also, it's getting trendy instead of semi-automatic, fully automatic, like that you can serve more customers, you can have more grab and go. You place everything through your cell phone on those coffee shops. Then also it's very important, the freshness on that becomes key part also. That's why also is empowering the local coffee producers in those countries that are exploring more and more the coffee culture, because then if you want freshness, you need to have some reliability of green beans and roasted coffee that is super fresh, 1, 2, 3 weeks, 1 month or so for these the new experiences of the coffee rituals. And then on the last on the photo on the right, you see a huge coffee shop that has roasters, coffee roasting machines from Korea. By the way, this brand is this roasting brand is from Korea in China. The store is in China, so it's really like it looks more like a museum for coffee, to be honest. That's the new experience that the new generations are looking for, like different flavors on the coffee, very Instagram, social media like, and the inside the environment, it should be also very warm, very different from what we used to experience in the orthodox coffee drinker countries. Let's go for the next slide because I want to do a little bit faster. So give some people, give people some opportunities to ask questions. So let's go, please. We have some products that you will see, which are coffee rituals that are developing into products. So liquid espresso coffee shots that are very popular here in China, in Japan, in East Asia, in some countries. I'm not sure how popular are outside Asia. Also, it's like a liquid, slowly cold brewing to really create some thick coffees. And also those thick coffees, you can use it with hot, cold milk or water or whatever you want to mix. And because of that, also you can play with fruity flavors, as I was putting that on the espresso liquid shot. You have orange cold Americano. So that's an example of it. Then also because we are talking about other products that are based on plant-based milks, then you have coconut lattes that are cold, that are served like a ready to RTD products, right? It could be in vending machines and so on. Then also you have on brick and mortar stores, example of this would be a Pandam cold coconut latte. So you have latte, espresso shot, a latte layer, and then in the bottom you have Pandam extraction, which is a very Southeast Asian leaf that has that kind of green color. It's a little bit sweet. It's also very good for health benefits. And then on the other one, we have like a freeze-dried instant coffee. Then you're probably gonna ask, but freeze-dried coffee, instant coffee is nothing new. Well, this one is new first because it's inspired by a Chinese pharmaceutical industry, because in China they use a lot of old ways to create Chinese medicine. So they have ways of creating liquid and evaporation and concentration of those products to create medicine that is poured into water and then you can drink it. It's different from the Western approach that we have the medicine, which is a pill. So the Chinese industry copied that way of processing the ingredients to create really good coffees, specialty coffees that you can really create into instant coffee, and you have all the flavors into really one instant freeze-dried processed product. And then below that, you see that those capsules that they are using, they are putting into also sustainable packaging, which is cardboard that are cut and then created, put holes, and then just created as a package itself. So they are really all these new rituals or these new ways of drinking coffee by and for the new generations are really creating products that are the trend later, right? So this is an example of that. Let's continue, please.
Sorry,
by the way, Rafael, if anyone wants to jump, Ranjana, Rafael, please let me know.
Yeah.
No,
I just wanted to, sorry, Rafael, before, I just wanted to remind everyone, please do add in your questions into the chat. We have just 13 minutes left for the session, so we'd like to get to questions. So right now is the time. Yeah, back to you, Rafael.
Yeah, just want to highlight how this really explains very well how everything seems to be possible, right? And even looking at other industries like the pharma industry to bring some of those new concepts. And, you know, we know that coffee has been associated with health benefit, but the way we prepare and consume can also be learn from other sectors, right? So thanks for going through that with us. And I think, you know, we can really see here how different ingredients can really disrupt and transform the way coffee looks and tastes and is prepared. So thanks for taking the time to go through that with us.
Thanks. Let's go 2 slides further. I want to create the next one, please. Otherwise, we're not going to have enough time for questions. So I prefer questions, even though I don't finish all the slides. This is an example of the environment, what are the new rituals creating the environments. So this new generation are looking for environments like this. This is from a presentation my partner and me did for a project. So these are the new environments. These are very bright, warm feeling, woody, bamboo feeling coffee shops that are very clean. As you see, no mess at all. It's almost like kind of clinical tidiness on the coffee shop that you see. Also very easy to navigate for the baristas and the people inside the coffee bar, right? Because there are spaces that are usually small, right? So how do you manage and how do you make the most out of the smaller spaces, right? Again, as I was saying, all the trend is to have smaller size areas for coffee shops and all that into the newer this new retail coffee experience, right? Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I have a little bit delayed. Yeah, so then let's jump into neo-futurism, right? This the impact of the coffee rituals. So is I think I can pass this to Rafael actually, right?
Well, I think you prepared the landscape very well in terms of, what is the future of coffee rituals and drinking going to look like. So we were trying to come up with something that was going to trigger some thought, to trigger some discussion. So we can see how we have new generations engaging with this category. We have new concepts, new stores in which the product is being consumed. And we just wanted to open the floor, so to speak, in terms of what is the future of coffee consumption going to look like. And I think the concept of neo-futurism is a good way of describing how convenience is starting to be very important for us, but so is sustainability. So how are we going to somehow converge into a category that's going to address the needs of different target segments, take into account some of those very significant changes that we see, whether it is around socio-economic shift, but also climate changes. So I think, this is quite inspiring, and I don't know how we are going to do it, but the whole idea of this webinar is to work on this together, right? So Felipe and I have already started a collaboration with Gourmet Pro in order to address the needs and some of the challenges of our customers. But we would also be very interested to hear how some of our entrepreneurs, hopefully they're with us today, would also co-develop or collaborate with us to reinvent or continue to transform and disrupt this interesting category, which again stayed traditional for a long time, but I think for the last 10, 15 years, it's a revolution. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Felipe. Am I right in saying that, things have moved faster in the last 10 to 15 years that they probably moved for the 50 years before that? That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, very curious to hear, about our audience and potentially discuss those type of opportunities offline.
Yeah,
So
I
maybe
agree. I think we can start on questions, right?
Yes.
Oh, next slide. Sorry.
All right. All right. Okay. We do have one question here from Deborah. Can the production cover the growth of coffee drinkers? Are the coffee drinkers focusing on quality or quantity?
Yes. So as I was saying, it's a little bit complex. It does. So quality is, as I was saying, whenever it's possible, is focus on quality. But when we are talking about huge segments of the population drinking coffee, the quality is really difficult. Like, for example, specialty coffee is really difficult to produce. Therefore, we are looking more to the quantity side then after that. So that's why I was saying a lot of coffee producers are even trying to get Robustas into Arabica feeling on the notes. So like that, we have more production, more yields of coffee in the coffee producing area. So like that, everyone can enjoy a coffee while we keep growing the consumption. So it really depends. I guess the quality would be probably more and more expensive, to be honest. In general, coffee prices are going up. So I would say specialty coffee also is gonna keep going up and up.
Okay, we have another question here. This talk is very much on drinking coffee. Do you see innovation happening also in the edible coffee space with the new generations?
Rafael, do you want to jump on that one?
If you wish, I think you touched on that earlier, where you said that it's not so much a beverage for some of our target segment. It's a product, right? So I think that captures the fact that edible coffee is definitely part of the mix here, whereby some people look at that. Let's say if it's consumed to be indulgence, or if it's consumed to be a product, certainly that could be another category of edible coffee. And coffee is added to multiple food products. So I mean, the boundaries here are not very defined. But in terms of innovation, I think it is very clear from what we've seen earlier around some of those examples that there is absolutely no reason why this couldn't be commercially viable. But Felipe, have you actually seen any examples in the market?
Yes, so one example that I've seen back in Colombia, but then I saw that also here in China, probably in another countries is the same then, is that they put chocolate. So you have drops of chocolate, and inside you have coffee beans, roasted coffee beans, of course. So you have a very milky chocolate, sweet, and then when you get into the coffee, when you started to eat it, right, the chocolate, the bitterness, the slight bitterness of the coffee really pairs well with the milk, candy-like chocolate flavor on those ones. So that's an example of editable coffee, that on dessert side, but editable coffee, right? There's another question, Ranjana, I think, about the future of infused coffee.
How do you see the future of infused coffee?
If I can reply to that, let me start with this, Rafael. So infused coffee is one, I think it's a very popular thing that is going to keep growing. I've seen also, because infused coffee is a product that also you can convert in almost like a ready to drink anywhere, right? If you are in the mountains and so on, you have a space that you are not available or having everything accessible, or like it's something that is very practical to drink coffee, right? Infused coffee is almost like like kind of tea-like, right, ways, but for also to drinking coffee. We have also something similar with the drip coffee bags that you can drink it also anywhere, in airports and so on, or when you are in the mountains camping. It's I think infused and similar ways of drinking coffee that are practical, they are easy to take, right, and then enjoy it anywhere. These kind of products are the ones that the new generations are probably going to be very eager to consume, especially with very nice packaging, right? Sustainable packaging, of course.
All right.
I want to echo that as well, and maybe pushing it a little bit further with botanicals extract and herbs, and how they can bring some wonderful flavor and health benefits as well into the equation. So absolutely.
All right. The next question is, other than Arabica and Robusta, are there any perspectives for ancient varieties that could be rejuvenated?
Yes, there is. So we have the coffee tree, right? So Arabica and Robusta are two, let's say, parts of that tree, right? But also we have Liberica coffee, we have eugenonics. I always forget that word. There is a special type also. Liberica, as I was saying, is also another part. So that's those are usually other types of coffees that also are being by the coffee growers. They are trying to also rejuvenate these kind of cultivars, right? And then try to also see if there is a way to enter into the market. So I have tried both Liberica and eugenonics or something like that. I always forget that word. It's very, very different from the coffee that we drink, especially both are more the coffee cherries are bigger, and the flavor is almost like grape juicy like. It's very particular, it's very different. I think there is a market for that for sure, but now really is on the side of the coffee growers and the countries that are on those, like, and if they are supporting those coffee growers to play with that, to invest on that, right? See if some of those kind of varieties also play better with the climate change, right? So that's a lot of research and investment that the world really needs to put into that to have these rejuvenations of this kind of old or not traditional coffee beans.
Okay, we have one final question. We are going slightly above time, but I think that's okay. That's coffee upcycling. What do you see in terms of coffee waste being utilized? Do you see commercialization or growth of such products from a sustainability perspective?
Rafael, can I go first on this one, please, also? All right. So this is something that is really happening as very strong as seen all around the world, including China. And that is on the coffee pucks. Like after you make an espresso, you have some coffee like the grounds that are expressed, right? We call that professionally pucks, I think, P-U-C-K. And then a lot of one example of what you can use on that is like you use that as a part of a material to create a plastic injection or polymeters to create things. Like it's not this, but it's like, for example, similar to cups, chairs, tables, forks, etc. So many products that are related also to the food and beverage industry. That's one way to do it. The other one is also, for example, there is an Australian company that they create compostable. They convert trash, like wet trash and food or organic trash, into compostable that they can sell as organic fertilizer. And I've seen here in China, at least, that they're using this company is using coffee cups, pucks, sorry, the grounds after use to add into the mix that is slowly combusting into creating that fertilizer, because that has a very good content of carbon on it, the coffee. So it really helps into this compostable becoming the organic wastage into fertilizer. So those kinds of ways are doing it. So they put that into special bags that are later taken by the delivery drivers, like drivers or delivery services, into these kind of facilities that could be inside farms, organic farms, and so on. And that really produce organic fertilizer that are first is a good way to use those residues on the coffee industry, but also is a good way to give back, right? The fertilizer can use again in coffee producing areas to fertilize specialty coffee or organic coffees and so on. So it's really like how I've seen many ways to keep doing this. So it's very interesting, and there is a lot of room to invent new things on that. Rafael?
I'm good, thank you. I don't think I'll be able to keep up with you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay. Can I do one last question? Do we have time? Do both of you have time for that? All right. This is from Catherine. I've seen a few companies offering kits to grow your own mushrooms where you need to add coffee grounds as compost and fertilizer. Sorry, that was not a question. That was a comment. Thank you, Catherine.
Yes, indeed, it is happening. And then I think Starbucks at some point here in China was playing with the idea to do that as a marketing promotion for some of the seasonals of their coffees. I don't know if at the end they did it or not, but they were those was some of the ideas that they were playing here with the Starbucks China, at least.
Okay, great. So I guess that's it for now. Right. So thank you very much, both. It looks like that's all we have the time for today. We have gone a little over. anyway. But this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of creating new coffee consumption rituals. And if you'd like to learn more from Rafael and Felipe about this topic, do please reach out to us at Gourmet Pro and we can get you connected. There's also a quick reminder that we do have another event coming up in just a couple of weeks. And we'll be sharing the recording with you. It looks like people do want that. But thank you all for being such a great audience, and thank you to Felipe and Rafael for such an insightful session. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much for the audience, to Gourmet Pro, to Rafael. I couldn't have done it also without both of you. And really thanks for the audience to also be here. Otherwise, it would be a little bit boring without the audience. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Felipe. Thanks, Franjala. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you all.